だから私が本当によく英語はどうやって勉強したらいいですかとか、どうしましたか、どうやって勉強してきましたか、もちろんいろんなことやってるんですけど、やっぱり一番やらさせてもらってよかったなと思うのはスピーチの話なんですね。で、よく生徒さんなんかでもネイティブスピーカーみたいになりたいっていう言い方が多いんですけど、私が言うのはネイティブスピーカーにはなれません。生まれ変わらないと。だけれども、あえて言わさせてもらうと、ネイティブスピーカーを超えることができる。例えば今日は日本語コンテストやっています。皆さんは普通のネイティブスピーカーを超えています。日本語コンテストで、トースマスターズの方々は。なんか日本語のネイティブスピーカーになれば、輝くわけではないわけですよね。その中でも輝くためにはいろんなトレーニングが必要で、ある意味トレーニングすればネイティブスピーカーを超えることができる。で、超えるためにはやっぱりいいものを学ばないといけない。例えば英語だったら、生徒用の英語のテキストをやるのももちろん悪いことはないけども、そのレベルで終わってしまうともったいないかな。やっぱりそれを超えるためには、いわゆる例えばネイティブスピーカーであろうがノンネイティブスピーカーであろうが、世界中の人がいいと思った英語を吸収していくということで、自分の殻を破れる、ある意味では一個の人間の殻を破れるようなものが学べるんじゃないかなって、つくづくやらさせてもらってですね、これをやったのだから1979年ぐらいに最初に私やらさせていただいて、初め聞いて何だろうと思って、意味全然わかんないけどなんかジーンとくるみたいな。で、暗唱しなさいって言われたんですけど、とても暗唱できないな、すごすぎると思いました。ただそれから30年ぐらい経ちましてですね、今でも練習してるんです。大体、ペースレスで1週間に1回ぐらい、他のスピーチも実はいろいろ練習してるので、今日は何やることをやってるんです。やればやるほど奥深いんですね。で、今日は日本語コンテストということなので、特別に実は日本語の和訳を私が書いてきまして、というのは和訳、今日本に出回っているものを見ると、何もそのキング牧師のそのものが伝わってくるのないな、和訳したいとどうしてもこうなるんですけど、なるべくそれが伝わるようにと思いまして、英語のスピーチと合うような形のタイミングで訳せるようなものを、持ってきました。で、見ていただければ日本でも分かるかもしれませんけど、例えばキング牧師というのは言葉を使うこと非常にセンシティブな方で、非常に勉強して、もう全ての言葉で素晴らしい言葉を抽出されているわけなんですよね。なので、いまだに私が勉強すると、なるほどなと思うようになりました。そのテクニックだけじゃないんですね。私よく言いますければ、言霊っていうのがあるんですが、やっぱりなんでスピーチが素晴らしいかって、言葉に魂があって、で、なんでその人のスピーチが輝くかというと、その人そのものが輝いていて、なんでその人が輝いているかというと、その人のなりが出てて、その人の人生が生きてて、それを感じるからですよね。で、特にオバマだとかキングだとか、最近ですスティーブ・ジョブズとかね、スピーチを聞いてますと、ある意味一人を超えてるんですね。なんか天命を受けたかのように使命感というのを感じてるのかいというぐらいの領域に行ってしまっている、簡単なことを言うと神の領域に行っちゃってるなという感じもするぐらいのすごいものがあるので、初心者の方からこれを練習するようにお勧めしてるんです。ちょっとずつでもいいから、全部初めからではできなくていいけども、ちょっとずつから味わってやってくださいということを言う。今から大体15分ぐらいですから、ちょうどいいかと思います。で、これちょっと真面目な、本当に真面目なスピーチですので、暗くなる、もう暗いんですね、会場ね。あんまり暗くなることないので、時折拍手してガーッてやってもいいですので、見た方はご存知のとおり、1963年8月28日、彼がこのスピーチをしたとき、25万人の人がワシントンモールに集まって、木の上にも登ってかけましたからね、もうスピーチの間はわーってやってましたけど、それをやりながら、キングが何言ったのかというのをもう一回ちょっと見ていただきながら、やっぱりスピーチってすごいもんだなって一緒にまた味わえたらいいなと思っています。よろしくお願いいたします。見えますか？大丈夫ですか？ちょっと待ってくださいね。そんな進行しないでください。どのぐらいの方がこれ最初から最後見たことがございますか？そんなにそちらのサイドすごいですね。どちらのからでしょうね。非常に多いですね。どうしようかな。ここに立とうか。じゃあいきなり始めますね。I am happy to join with you today
in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. So we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to a nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great boats of opportunity of this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this house to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off, or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It will be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed the flow of steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. And as we walk, we must make a pledge that we shall always march ahead. There are those who are asking the liberties of civil rights. When will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies heavy with the fatigue of travel cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as the children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and the Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom have left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and ghettos of the northern cities. Knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even in the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls and sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill or mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the south with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, my country tea of me, sweet land of liberty of the I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So, let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the capricious slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Storm Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring, and when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
本当すごいスピーチですよね。もう魂を揺さぶるようなこういうスピーチ聞いているうちに、自分も少し力をもらいながらなんかできるかなみたいなことがですね、毎日スピーチする中でいろんなことが学べるんですけどありまして、ですので、もしよろしければ、Toastmasters District 76の新しいブランドとして暗唱をやってるよみたいな。なんて、I have a dream. Thank you very much.